But a great quote. This is just like I didn't realize like courtrooms are so funny, right? This is the copper lawyers, and up until now, Craig keeps producing evidence right in the 11th hour, and up until now they've been calling it. He keeps pulling rabbits from hats to be like gazump them, and they just went. He's not pulling rabbits from hats anymore. He's pulling garbage out of a bin. You know, and it's like, Satoshi's wallets are largely known. So
Yeah.
move just a couple of sats from one of those wallets, and it doesn't necessarily prove that you are Satoshi. It proves you have access to one of Satoshi's wallets, but that goes a hell of a long way to proving that if you're not Satoshi, you are freaking close to him if you have access to one of his wallets. So just move some sats. He refuses to do it. His lawyers have pressured him. And when he got pressured enough, he freaking pretended to commit suicide. And that's what I think he did. He pretended to commit suicide.
It was too much stress. How dare you? It makes me think about child, like the same child who keeps on lying and they're telling all their mates they can use, I don't know, like the force or something like that. And when they get called out in class to use the force, they faint.
Boom, we are back. This is now pod 130 of the world's most bullish podcast, Bullish Bitcoin Banter and Bullshit, brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and yes, she's not here, Mrs. No Show, aka No Show. What's going on?
Be a bit of a quiet week this week, I think, Bitcoin related.
Well, there's good stuff coming up, isn't there? Seems to be a little bit of a surge on the price, which is obviously promising. So, maybe we'll start to see that tail coming into the halving. And then the other one is a story which we're going to cover halfway through this, which is an interesting development, but obviously it's only the start of that one. So I think we'll be talking about it more in detail next week or possibly the week after. But then also, here's something which I was just thinking when you said pod 130. What number did you reckon we'd get to?
Who knew? Who knew?
I was wondering whether we get past like 4 or 10.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think we'd get to 10, which is why I said I wasn't going to put any live until we did 10. Because I'm not going to, I did edit them, didn't I? I edited them, published them, and like showed you them, but I didn't show anyone else. It was like, these stay under wraps unless we're actually going to commit to it. And yeah, 130 in.
Here we are.
It's pretty much, I think it's coming up to 3 years, really, isn't it? Because, yeah, like we haven't done one completely every week. We have missed the odd week here and there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're pretty consistent every week.
Absolutely.
3 years, that's smashed my expectations on that one. Which is, I think sometimes that's good, isn't it? Like we didn't start out with a massive plan. It was like, let's just see how it goes. And it's gone all right, and it was still here.
Best way,
still enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my favorite part of the week. Sit down, spill the tea. What's going on in the world of Bitcoin, macroeconomics, and life?
Yeah, especially in the last 2 years, my life has changed a huge amount. So I actively sometimes I don't keep up with Bitcoin that much, but because I know this agenda's coming up every week, it almost forces me back into the streets of Bitcoin Twitter if I haven't been in that week much. And I'll find it out and I'll learn loads, find out what's going on, shove it on the agenda, chat it through with you guys. So it almost it works as a good sense check just to go.
Keeps us up to date and talk about things for backgrounds. This has arrived.
Hey.
I've got my white paper.
The white paper in black.
Yeah, with orange writing. Bitcoin orange. Need to find a place where to put it. Do I put it over there or do I put it in front of me?
It looks like it would balance that side out quite nicely. Without a window there to the left.
No, that's Liverpool poster. It's Gerrard and Carragher holding the Champions League.
Okay, can't quite see it.
Yeah. Nice. When did it arrive?
A few days ago. I just haven't got around to actually putting it up yet.
Yeah, I like the fact that, classic black and orange, good choice.
I was tempted with the white purely because it's a white paper. I thought it looks much better on black, doesn't it? And then a bit of orange writing, a bit of something different.
Yeah. It's actually probably quicker than I thought you'd actually make that decision. I mean, you've been thinking about it for the last year, and then I showed it to you maybe 2 months ago, and now you're getting quicker on your decisions.
Yeah, getting quicker. I don't think there's another one which I want at the moment. I mean, like there's things like I always like that. What is it? The Chancellor, no, banks on the brink of another bailout. That's the one which I quite like, but I'm like, don't want to wait for the next event so I can get that to be on my poster instead.
I had you down to at least to not get that until another halving, not this one.
Another 4.5 years.
yeah, minimum. Like I'm in an in, what size, what font color, like should I get a border? No.
I was holding off. I mean, admittedly, I was.
Here we go. Go on,
I was holding off on it because it was only in white for ages, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was looking, going, I really want that, but it's in white. I want it in black, like Mr. All-Ins. And then it just didn't emerge. And then eventually, you sent a link. I thought, oh, I think I have to get this. My wife's like, what have you ordered? Nothing. She hasn't asked where it's going, so I think it's just going to appear on the wall one day.
Yeah. Well, again, this is just probably an early warning signal to anybody that's listening that is still on zero, that if Dr. Evil 10% is making these moves in the world of Bitcoin, you are lagging and you should be adopting Bitcoin ASAP.
And also, Dr. Evil seemed very rich if he's lashing out all that money on displays.
Very true. Very true.
So do we want to move on to the story? So the first one, which I think has really confused me, but Elon confiscated the I say X, I hate saying X, Twitter, the tweet. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think I've heard a story on the radio or something else about this. So it's Elon has 55 billion confiscated. And it's trying to, what was this for?
Okay, well, I thought the story was massive, but sorry, yes, this is just a tweet commenting on it. So basically, what's happened this week is that Elon agreed a compensation package back in, I think it's 2018, when if he could add 50 billion worth of value to Tesla in the next 5 years, then he would get given like something like 9% of the company, 7, 8, or 9% in shares. And that would be via money, like inflating the shares, right? They'll essentially print 9% more shares and just give them to Elon. And he put that to the board. And that was a decision that they just agreed with. Like 80% of the shareholders went, absolutely. If you can add 50 billion worth of value to this company, that essentially is 10xing the business. Yeah, you can have another 9% as a shares reward. Elon smashed that, absolutely smashed that. Everyone said at the time in 2018, that is ridiculous, because Elon even said it as well, by the way, talk about being all in. He went, my salary will be zero. I accept zero.
Oh.
I don't want any compensation. If I don't hit this, I get nothing. I've been CEO 5 years for nothing.
Right.
Admittedly, he's already got lots of shares in the business anyway. So, but for actual,
and also he probably has other businesses and other streams of income, doesn't he?
Yeah, of course. Like this is just Tesla. He's got SpaceX. He's got, and obviously he's a rich guy anyway. But he could have demanded this deal plus I want to get paid 200 million a year. He said no, because that's what the CEO of Ford gets paid 200 million a year. He could have said that. He said no. I don't. I'm betting big, so I'll take 9% of the company if I hit this milestone, this growth of the business, and if I don't, I get zero. So essentially, it happened, and in 2022, he got paid out 55 billion. worth of shares in Tesla. So we're a couple of years on now from that. And obviously he used a lot of that money to buy Twitter. And obviously we know that Elon did the Twitter files. You know, he's been talking out a lot about, talking out about immigration, Biden, all that stuff. So we know he's in the crosshairs. And a judge that seems to have a very dodgy background essentially had ruled that this amount of compensation, a 55 billion share allocation to a single person, is far too much and is robbing the existing shareholders of value, and has basically made it illegal and has undone it. So now Elon has to go through an appeals process to go, well, no, like the shareholders did sign off on it. Yes, it's a huge amount of money, but I created a huge amount of value in a business and it was a gamble. If I didn't hit that, I got zero.
I mean, part of the problem, like with America, like you talked about being the crosshairs, but say it's not that, and it's basically just a judge saying that's unfair.
Yeah.
It's like their religion is politics almost, and it's like they decided it's not fair, and it's like, but we're meant to be in capitalism. So capitalism, you can't do things like that. Property is, the individual's right, that kind of like that sovereign right. Whereas this is basically, oh yeah, the state says it's unfair, so we're undoing it. So it's all kinds of bad. And like you said, he has raised the value by X amount, which was pre-agreed. He hasn't somehow roped it in. It was agreed with the board and with the company. Everyone was happy for it to happen if he hit these obscene numbers. So it's a bit, why would the judge get involved? But I think, what the actual poster said, it kind of leads on quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wasn't taking a salary
in
between. The fact that he wasn't taking a salary in between shows that he was upholding his part of the bargain.
Yeah.
And it's not just a flippant throwaway comment of, yeah, I think I can do this, or I'll try and do it. It's like, well, no, I'm doing it, and lo and behold, 5 years later, I've done it.
Yeah. Well, imagine if he 5 years happened and he hadn't hit it, and Elon goes to court demanding to be paid for that work. That's how ridiculous it is. He's like, no, right, Elon, we agree. You should have been paid 200 million a year to do that. You're one of the best CEOs ever, right? So absolutely, you deserve 200 million a year for that 5 years. So you should get paid 500 million. But you agreed this deal. You signed a deal that said you get paid zero unless you hit this much extra value in the business, and then you get paid 9%. You didn't hit that metric. Stop crying. Run away. And I guarantee no judge would be coming out going, this is unfair to Elon. He shouldn't get paid zero for this.
Yeah, you've got like the comparisons. I know it's not as much money, but in films where I think it was Alec Guinness in Star Wars, he thought he might be big, so he wanted a stake rather than much of a salary. Mark Hamill did it in the sequel, so the second and third films he had exactly the same clause, and then Tom Cruise has done it on numerous different films where they've gone, okay, I don't want much money up front, but I want 5% or something like that, and they get much higher pay. Like I think, was it Tom Cruise got paid like 100 million because he went for the percentage of one film?
Yeah.
So it works out better, and it's the same kind of thing. You've never heard a judge trying to step in. I think this is, it's one of the many things where you kind of go, the US is Rome, isn't it? It really is on fire, and people are getting involved in all kinds of things which they shouldn't be.
Yeah. And and pinning it back to Bitcoin is like, why does this make a difference? With Stony Bitson here, who's a good old Bitcoin Twitter guy, is that they can confiscate your ETF in the same way. You think you're buying Bitcoin ETF, they will take your money for the greater good, right? They will always be saying they're doing this for the people. It's what they're saying about Elon right now. And people know that if this was Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, one of Joe Biden's mates, this would just be swept under the rug. And it's capitalism, right? We live in capitalist society. It is what it is.
Well,
but because it's Elon's been giving them the middle finger for quite a while now. So they're going after him, and they're going after him like this is.
But it's also
they're trying to ruin him, right? They're trying to ruin the richest guy on the planet, like taking 55 billion off him, especially when he's already spent from like 44 billion of that on Twitter.
Yeah,
but they're also it goes down to not just him. You kind of go, where's the cutoff if they start doing things like this? They go, oh, you've had a great year in sales. You've earned an extra, 300K. You've really topped up your salary. You've got a decent amount. That's too much. You should only be earning 150K. We're going to take 50% off you on top of the tax which you paying anyway. So you're not going to earn as much. But this is what I agreed as part of my contract. This is, if I made X amount of sales, I get this amount cut, and I built up that much through having a good year. It's obscene, isn't it? And it kind of, when you go, oh, what about lower? And it goes, if you do this amount of work, you get paid bonus based on the amount of work you do. Oh no, you've done too much work this year. We're going to skim off 20-30% off you as well as all your tax. It's like, where does it stop?
That reminds me, actually, I saw a little interview of Martin Lewis with, I'm not even sure who his name is, but I think he's the head of the finances for the UK government. And he was on there on this little clip that I watched to show the fact that national insurance has gone down by X%. On average, the average household is saving £500 a year.
Didn't they put it up 2 years ago?
Don't know. But even let's just take this year in isolation. So they've decreased it and they say £500 a year savings. Okay. Martin Lewis, fair play, went straight away. But due to inflation, the amount of people that are now earning more and have been pushed through new tax brackets that have not moved for decades, overall, even factoring in this £500 saving in national insurance, will be paying more in income tax anyway, on average. And the guy was just sat there stunned, going, you're not meant to know about that.
Well, I suppose that's why they're willing to do it. And it's also, the fact is that all your food, and everything else, all your goods have gone up by 40%. And therefore your, 20% VAT on all these things will have gone up.
Yeah.
So you're paying more tax as it is, you're getting less money.
Yeah, it was just really nice because normally Martin Lewis, I've always seen him a bit of almost like a low IQ economist, or like financial guy. Like he looks at things too blinkered, right? He'll just go, "Oh, buy this credit card because you get this little bit more money," and da da da. And in recent years, it seems to be he's realised it's inflation is the enemy. So every time the government come out with a thing, he goes, right, does that counter inflation, right? Because inflation is causing basically 5 to 10% at least increase in everything. And one of the really biggest ones is shoving people into these new tax brackets. The amount of people now probably earning over 40 grand is a huge number now. Whereas that was supposed to be, you're an exceptional earner to be earning over 40 grand. You are basically a director at this point. And if you're earning
40
100K,
grand you need 40 grand to pretty much live now.
Yeah, like literally people have to start on 25 and then after a couple of promotions they're on 40 and then your life starts. And guess what? You're now in the highest tax bracket in the UK at this point. You go, hold on, I've just taken the first two steps in my career.
We did also talk about it last week with pensions, because with pensions, you're taxed, I think it's after 20 grand as an income, even though you've been taxed on it. Well, actually not, you get tax allowances, but you get taxed on the rest of your money anyway. But so if you want to live on 30 grand over the last 4 years, we know it's gone by 30-40%. So it's a third extra. So it's putting you into new tax bands on that as well. So it's literally getting more tax everywhere now. You want to retire, you're going to have to. It's now 40 grand is a new 30.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Strangely enough and coincidentally, I posed the question in which we always say, how do you know that the government at the time won't pass a new law that will mean that you won't be able to have access to the money that you've been saving, not now for the last 40 years, but the last 50 years, given the fact that they want to, or they may need to, raise the retirement age to 71 from where it already is at 68, which it's going to be in the year 2020.
And also, they move private pensions, the age which you can take it out, from 50 to 57. Yes. What says that they won't raise it to 67, even though it's none of their business because it's your money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, exactly.
surely it should be that, you know, when you start paying into your pension, in my mind, that's when the contract starts. So it should be honored. So any
Mm.
changes should just be a case of, well, yeah, you can make the change. Then anyone that's basically 18 now, they sign up to that new contract. So they almost get to decide, like, do you want to pay into a pension with these rules? And they should fix them. But it's because that's what would happen with a bank, right? Like it's like a mortgage. Yeah. Mortgages change all the time. But if I've managed to wait until the rates were low and then lock in my rate for 10 years, that's the rate I get. And rates go all crazy. Someone comes in and buys a mortgage at that point, then but this is the only financial instrument that is probably the most important financial instrument, which is a pension, that the rules can change almost the day before you take your pension out. And the tax laws can vastly change the amount you could take out each year, the age you could take it out can all just change willy-nilly. One politician just makes a call and yeah, your retirement plans are scuppered. And yeah, we probably don't need to like bash pensions any more than we already have on this pod, but Jesus Christ, like saying that that is the safest place to put your money is nuts. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Saving for your old age, absolutely do it. But save it in a place that you have control. Do not put it into a
But
government.
I think we should go further in the fact that if Martin Lewis is starting to go down this route more and more, this is good because he has the ear of the masses who do listen to him, and he equally gives good practical advice. So I see a world in which one day Martin Lewis will be saying to the masses, yeah, sign up to X exchange and make sure that you take your Bitcoin off that exchange. I can hear
Custody.
it.
A
Yeah,
whole
take custody.
a whole show about taking custody of your coins.
Yeah.
That'd be classic.
Yeah, but
Don't buy.
you know,
You may see Ethereum and think it's cheaper, but it's shit. Don't buy it. And that
exactly.
Dogecoin, it may print more. It's just like fiat. Don't buy that. And
Yeah.
this dink doink, fuck me, you're an idiot if you buy that. Bitcoin, just buy the Bitcoin. Don't click on anything else. If it says Bitcoin Cash, don't click on that. Next week we'll be covering custody, and the week after we'll be covering memes to send to your friends who are fucktards still in fiat.
Ring this number on the bottom if you need me because you've been scammed. Because that's what he used to do before with like PPI and things like that. It was set up a whole task force trying to help people that have been scammed out of crypto.
Yeah. I think one of the steps before that will be if before he gets into Bitcoin, he needs to fall off the pension wagon. And you'll go, don't pay into your pension, it's too risky. That will be
It'll be
so
cancelled.
close. He's in touching distance now. Because he's basically lost faith in the most treasured asset that is in the financial space, right? Which is the pension. Once that domino falls, it's a matter of time till he knocks into Bitcoin next. And then everyone's just going to think he's a crazy person and he's going to get cut off the mainstream TV probably because he can't go on there going, don't sod your bank account, sod this, sod that. You just need to get your money to exchange, convert it to Bitcoin, and fucking put it on a hardware wallet. It's the only way. Like once you start saying that, like the mainstream are just their heads are going to implode, and oh god, they're going to go, oh no, he turned full scammer.
However,
so I was going to say we were talking about Elon, weren't we? I don't know how we've ended down this massive tangent.
Yeah, it's been good. It's basically just government and confiscation, isn't it? It's just an example of like confiscation because you'd think like when you're a billionaire this rich, right? And we always get told, oh, no one should be a billionaire. You know, they just rule the world and da da da. And you go, well, by and large, I kind of agree in the fact that billionaires rule the world, but there's a small percentage of those billionaires that are genuinely ruling the world in a very corrupt fiat crony capitalism way. And I don't believe Elon is one of them. I think Elon is one of the guys that have actually dragged himself up from basically largely nothing to being one of the richest guys on the planet. And now he's under attack. So even with someone with his resources, he can't go against the justice system. Someone comes up and goes, we don't think you deserve that money. And they just go, they drop that.
But it's also, like I said,
that's it. Like you've lost that money.
But it's trying to work out whether this is a coordinated attack or whether it is just judges getting involved what they shouldn't do and trying to be political instruments
No,
within the
well,
US. It's
the
really
biggest
hard.
reason, right? It's the advertising, right? The amount of companies that quit their advertising on Twitter once Elon took over, and you go through the list of the companies, it's all the wokey cokey ones, all the ones that have got their freaking rainbow flags and BLM everywhere. And they've all just cut it off. And when they say what are their reasoning for cutting off advertising on Twitter, it's like, oh, because there's child trafficking on there, there's anti-Semitism. You just go, it's a social network where anyone can post anything. Why do you still advertising on Facebook then? Why are you doing it on Instagram? Why are you doing it on TikTok? Why are you doing it on Reddit? They all have, like, any idiot can post the most horrendous things. But since Elon has taken over, he's largely got control of a lot of the spam. And when I've looked at his stats, a lot of these like very hateful, just unnecessary comments that are designed just to be inflammatory and just be hateful towards whole groups of people, he's cut down the percent of those that are happening now and deletes them quicker than what they were previously were. So on all the metrics that you want to go on, yes, of course, you can still find that stuff on Twitter, but there's less of it and it's getting deleted quicker. So for all these companies just to magically stop advertising after advertising on Twitter for years, like literally decades, they've just suddenly stopped once Elon took over. That is clearly a political attack to try and pull the support from underneath Twitter and make it an unstable company again. No matter how much Elon tries to make that company profitable, they've just gone, yeah, you can cut as many costs and bring in extra revenue, all these creative different ways. But if we just pull all the advertising revenue from you, you're going to fail anyway. So they're going for Twitter, and now they're going for him personally as well, based on this Tesla payout, which has nothing to do with anyone other than
It'll be
Tesla
interesting
and the shareholders.
because
The shareholders signed it off.
if it's my theory, the appeal straight away, it'll be what's the correct word, upheld. So, the judge will be told to fucking behave himself. Whereas if it's political, they'll uphold what the judge did.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Should we move on to, I would say, a lighter note, but it's never a lighter note, is it? Going on to Nigeria.
No.
We talked about Nigeria. It must be a good year ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Actually, I want to start, since we're talking about Inflation Weekly, we should start with a nice quote which I found. I'll just dig it out because I think this is worth starting. Help us understand inflation. So, someone called John Levin, money doesn't lose its value. That's a narrative. Instead, prices go up in this case due to relentless and cumulative population growth. You might say, what's the difference? Well, if you look at a problem the wrong way, you have very little chance to fix it. So now we understand inflation. Nigeria may need to be looked at a different way. It's not just them printing money, is it? Population growth.
It's just a narrative.
So really interesting because we talked about this, and I think they're trying to implement CBDCs, and they were locking the normal systems out the banks. When we talked about this, it was quite a bad situation, and now it has lost 2/3 of its value relative to the US dollar over the past year. And like I said, I think we talked about this a year ago when they'd lost 40%, and then also the plebs were getting locked out of their bank accounts. And then I think the statistics as well, it was 90% of the Nigerian currency was with the elites anyway.
Yeah. And just to really hammer that home, that is this, like, in the last year, 2/3 compared to US dollars in a year.
But it's speeding up, isn't it? This is heading towards hyperinflation.
Oh yeah. Well, it basically is, right, isn't it? To have lost 66% of the value of your money inside a year. And you can see from this chart, they're not really going up gradually. Like, these are just huge printing cycles that seem to be happening. They then just plateau for a bit and then another huge spike. There's clearly just, this is what happens when the proper, like, rich rats in the ship know that it's sinking and they're jumping ship, right? Because where's this printed money going? Do you think it's going into fixing public services? Is it going into Trying to stop hyperinflation, is it? No, clear, like nearly every single time, once the analysis is done back on these hyperinflated countries, these last couple of huge printing cycles goes completely to the corrupt politicians that are doing so and the big business owners, and they're running off of that money and
Yeah,
buying
'cause
buying
you
stuff like
look at it.
the people. It's devastating. I mean, the people in that company in that country, they've lost their money is just 66% loss in value
Yeah.
over a year. It's
So
just
it's two
devastating.
big spikes, though, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's you've got one in June, and it goes from 583 to 1,000. Sorry, this is sterling to the naira. Don't know how to
Yeah,
pronounce
so
that.
Naira. Yes, the
And then in
Nigerian
January,
Naira.
it goes from 1,142 to 1,768. So literally, we're going 50% on each of those instances within a matter of days.
Yeah.
That is severe printing. They're doubling like the money supply on each one.
Yeah. And you don't
But
get
of
straight line.
course, we need to remember what Nigeria's most valuable resource is, which is oil, which was first discovered
So
in
they're
1956.
they're an oil-rich state, and they're in this
Correct.
kind of trouble.
Yeah.
God, it must be a big population growth to cause this.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, you know that like the worst thing you can do is be a rich with oil in with the US. Fucking war machine
Exactly.
flying around the world.
Exactly. So really and truly, it's just a way to impoverish the people to then overtake it. And oh, well, now that we've had to bail you out, we'll also take the oil as well along with
Well,
it.
we had something like this, but it was the deposits of uranium in, was it Niger or something like that? And how the French were
That's
keeping
right.
them on the CFA franc, if I remember correctly. So it's similar, but it's like this thing which we talk about, and you don't really understand like the whole picture until you come across like Nigerian countries like this. It's a fiat Ponzi system. So it's like
Hmm.
the elites, the US take it all. They take off all your value with all the plebs underneath, but actually underneath us, there's people being fucked there. So like Nigeria, Niger, whichever countries which are supporting like US, UK, and you just don't think that this is happening. You
No.
think they're just poor. We better send them what a mosquito net by giving £5 to Live Aid. Whereas in fact it's just we're absolutely ruining them because all the money's being siphoned out and it's allowing the UK, US to basically live a bit better. We'd be down the plug hole if it wasn't for the leaning on poorer countries, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it is disgraceful. Yeah, we outsource loads of the labor to there, so we don't have to pay the higher wages
And steal their resources.
yeah, it's the stealing the natural resources, which is just
And then
horrendous.
if someone rises up and starts to send the country in a good direction, they're an evil dictator. We better send some freedom bombs or assassinate them and put a puppet in place who will rape, pillage the whole country again.
Yeah,
Never happened. It's never happened in Venezuela. It's never happened in all these wars, Iran, Iraq. Never happened there. Never happened in Afghanistan.
and so it is nuts when you see it, and it's just Jesus Christ. There's so many countries, and just imagine like being someone that is doing this, right, and then to have the gall because you're also running the media companies and stuff, and go, let's have a fundraiser for them. Let's send them like 20 million a year via Red Nose Day, whilst we're stealing probably hundreds of billions, or maybe just tens of billions worth of natural resources every year.
And then their government will probably take that 20 million and steal it anyway.
Yeah. It just like literally it's like how they treat certain countries is just it's almost a perfect model of just how they treat the individual citizens, isn't it? It's like, oh, we've
Yeah.
knocked down your national insurance down by a little bit. Yeah, but
But
you're the one that broke my leg by doing inflation and higher taxes and all this stuff. I'm now poor as shit, and you're giving me a crutch to get through the next couple of months. I'm not going to
It
say
do-
thank you. Like,
it
you're
does
the
make
one
you
that broke my
wonder,
leg.
but it does make you wonder how much, say, Africa, when they had, discovered all these natural resources, so Nigeria with oil, Niger with uranium and all the other precious metals and minerals which they found, how they would actually be if they were allowed to just get on with it.
Well, I can guarantee they'd be a lot better than they are now. But yeah, the American war machine makes sure that only certain countries can progress and others just stay in the dark ages because it suits them, doesn't it? Anyway, right, let's get on to this is the main story of the week, right?
Correct.
Good old freaking Craig, right?
I mean, Satoshi himself.
As much as I hate talking about him, it's just when I was reading like the notes and stuff, Craig is just pure entertainment at this point. It's
The
just
gift that keeps on giving.
yeah, there's no question that or is he Satoshi, is he not? Like anyone with a working brain knows he's not. Like the
What?
amount of forged documents, the inability
Right,
to use
that's the
anything.
pod just cancelled right there.
Not Chris.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, fans. That's it. We're done. We're done. Shut up, shop.
So Satoshi, before the start of his trial, said, ironically, the copper case will fall apart before it even starts. We're now on day 2, aren't we?
Yeah. He tried
So
to
that wasn't.
settle. He tried to settle last week. He didn't want to go to court.
He
He
agreed to drop everything against all the other people if they just shut up. Didn't
and
he? Or
admits
something
that
like
he's
that.
Satoshi.
Oh, admitted he was Satoshi.
Yeah. But all of them
So,
just went like, no, we have the strongest case ever. You've submitted like hundreds of thousands
and
of different
just to set the
documents.
scene, so Copper is a crypto open patent alliance.
Yeah.
So it's just basically saying these are the things which we're either filed or we believe.
He's been
Set,
countersued. So he's sued all these people
and
because they
everyone's just
called
got
him a
fed up,
fraud.
haven't they?
So they've countersued him. And instead of countersuing them all individually, they got together and just sued them all as one because then it pulls all the legal resources, right?
So you reckon this is like Peter McCormack, Hoddle
Mm.
Hort, and everyone else? Okay, good.
Yeah, it's everyone.
Um, I think so, so. There's so many things I could pick from this thread which is shared. I'm trying to remember who posted it because it was obviously
Norbert.
a lot of work for this person to put together, and
Yeah,
it
well,
was bit Norbert. So a lot of respect to him for putting everything together. But one
yeah.
of my favorite pieces of evidence is in 2016 or 2017. There's a handwritten note which says, "I don't wish to be Satoshi," before apparently he tried to commit suicide.
Yeah.
How is that proof?
I know. He's the most bizarre guy. And what he keeps doing. Yeah, go on.
No, I was just gonna. No, you go for it. Go for it.
It's he keeps submitting last minute evidence. Like it's clearly trying to just throw people off, throw the date back, going, oh, this evidence has just been revealed. And his latest one that he did something like a week ago was he had some documents that predated the Bitcoin white paper. It was from like 2006 or something. And he was talking about Bitcoin, largely about the technicalities of how the blockchain and proof of work would all link together. So he submitted this as proof that I am the Bitcoin founder. Here's me writing a document largely specking out what Bitcoin was going to be in 2006. This proves I am Satoshi. So this document goes over to Copper's side. They analyze this and just go, this document was created on a machine that had been set the clock to 2006. Because we can see that if you override that, the metadata behind where the clock is saying is that it was actually created 6 months ago. It's had like 200 edits on it. The last edit being the day before Craig submitted it as evidence.
Mm.
So this is a fraudulent document, undoubtedly. And he even said, oh no, it's on a format called latex or something. I never even heard of this.
Oh no, that's a different one.
Oh, it's a different one. But it's just
Yeah, I'll
like
talk about that
so
in a
many of
minute.
his documents, he's not even. And you know what his defense against that was when he did it in day one? His defense when the opening statements and things were being said, when it came back to them for comment, Craig's comment was, if I forged documents, you wouldn't know, they'd be perfect. So the fact that these forgeries are very easily proven to be forgeries means I didn't do it. And you go, Craig, but you still have submitted fraudulent documents, so it doesn't answer the question. You know,
Yeah.
the fact that you think you're an exceptional
Well,
forger
do you know what the best one is?
isn't
I think
out for
you haven't
question
even
here.
said
Like
the
you're
best
clearly
one.
not anyway.
Like that's quite a good one about the clock, but this one, so the white paper. So he'd obviously submitted that he'd written it and he had evidence, which is probably him clocking his computer back. But it was written on, like you said, latex or latex, whatever it is. Whereas in fact, the original white paper was written using OpenOffice, and not only that, with latex, the the features which he used to create the document weren't made available till something like 2013 or 2016.
I was going to say that's going to be the simplest one. That software, and it just wasn't even out, was it?
Yeah,
It just
it's like
wasn't
you said, there's all
available.
for plebs like us, we won't be able to find out all this information,
No.
but you're literally entering this den, all these techies putting all these massive claims in, and he pulls out something where they can just disprove by looking at
Yeah.
the metadata behind it.
Yeah.
The challenge is in this data-rich world, and in this world where people are really curious and equally ready to question if you can't back it up with facts, you're just going to get found out ASAP. And the internet is undefeated and relentless with it as well. So
Yeah,
Well, he's going
exactly.
against some
You
of the
got
Bitcoiners here, isn't he? Like literally,
yeah,
this is the crypto punks, right?
yeah,
This is the elite of technical brain power, right? This is
correct.
who, like, because admittedly, Hodonor and McCormack aren't, but there's some Bitcoin core developers that have been sued as well, and they're in this. So I can
yeah,
guarantee that the lawyers that are looking at these documents, they probably don't know how to analyze them. They just send them to the Bitcoin core developer, and you'll go, "Oh, I'll figure
Yeah,
this out. I'll see if this document's legit or not." And in
So
yeah.
do
five
you want
minutes flat, they're just pulling out that no, it got edited yesterday, and it got
do you
created
want
six months ago.
do you
Like,
want
no,
some
this is all.
do you want some other classic quotes from the day one?
Go on.
So they found 71 documents to have been manipulated. None of the other 26 new Reliance documents support Wright's claim to be Satoshi. So some solid evidence there that he is Satoshi. After this, Wright was pressed to provide evidence like moving coins. It shows an email to Anderson saying we are going to move coin. Wright made reporters send coin to Satoshi's addresses promising he would send them back, which he didn't. So this is a previous one, I think 2019. Goes into email supposedly between Wright and Kleeman. Wright asked Kleeman to help him with Bitcoin. The email domain wasn't created until 2009. Wright explained that the email wasn't an identical copy, but the body of the email was. Convoluted explanation from Kleeman case now being repeated. Expert agree these emails are inauthentic. When white paper was published, his focus was elsewhere, forensic, etc. But he's not very good at infosec, given he says he's been repeatedly hacked. So
Oh
this
yeah.
is someone who claims to be, a hell of a developer, but he's getting hacked all the time.
Well, that's his main explanation for why these documents aren't right. His claim is that the documents were correct, but someone's hacked his computer and put all this incorrect metadata on them. And you just go, Craig, like what? Like to actually make a document from 2006 look like it was edited 213 times and only created 6 months ago. This is really tough. Like, mate, come on. And you've done it 71 times now. Like, come on.
But he's like this he's like that kid at your school who's just relentless liar and just
Oh
goes
yeah,
deeper and deeper and deeper until there's
yeah.
just no backing out. And it's just like, even Calvin, your little mate's gonna run out on you. I think there was a threat a few months ago, wasn't there?
Oh, he's cut him from his legal bill, which is why he's
Yeah.
actually paying for the rest of these legal fees on his own now, which are why I think he tried to settle because he didn't want the court case.
So this is gonna wipe him out, isn't it? Probably.
It's gonna be expensive, especially when he loses and then needs to also pay all the fees from the other side, and then
Previous, yeah.
whatever
There's
settlement.
also there's also the previous settlements which he hasn't
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The
dealt with.
previous settlements and the fact that he said if anybody else obviously wants to defame him, that he'll then sue them as well. So
I think it's open
come ye,
season.
come all. Yeah, exactly. Open
When,
season.
once this case closes and he's found to not be Satoshi, it's like we can all
Correct.
just call him what we want, and it's just
Yeah.
you know. But a great quote. This
Um,
is just like I didn't realize like courtrooms are so funny, right? This is the copper lawyers, and up until now, Craig keeps producing evidence right in the 11th hour, and up until now they've been calling it. He keeps pulling rabbits from hats
Mm.
to be like gazump them, and they just went. He's not pulling rabbits from hats anymore. He's pulling garbage out of a bin. Like this isn't a court of law, like in London. There's a proper judge listening to this. And then another thing that just tickled me in here is apparently there was a protected document inside some of the things that Craig submitted, and he didn't tell them what the password was, so they just guessed, and the password was Bitcoin 11, and they got in, and they guessed it, and you just go, Craig, like, you're clearly just trying to be a bit of a dick, right? Submitting a load of documents and password protecting one of them. But they guessed it, and they didn't even have to ask you what the password was. It's Bitcoin 11, and I just retweeted
if
that today, being like, "Is this the new Hunter 2?" Like the infamous internet password that was.
Yeah.
another great
God,
quote
like
out of
what
this.
is this? If this wasn't real and happening in front of my eyes, I thought this would just be parody. This is like a comedy sketch.
It was on day 2, so this is Norbert's writing. Craig is here, full clown outfit today. I overheard those shoes are offensive. Even getting personal against him. I just don't know what Craig's gonna do. It's just
You're gonna
I don't
lose.
know how I don't know how he gets out of this because he's not got the backing anymore. He's probably got a bit of money from being an early investor on Bitcoin and also starting up, was it Bitcoin Cash?
Yeah.
But that's going to run out, and he's going to have to do all these other settlements as well on the back of this. Oh, additionally, another bit is he went round in circles about explaining what he paid for Bitcoin.org with. So credit cards to debit cards to different types of payments, round and round. Oh no, it might be my lawyer. I told him to pay with this. I don't know. Even though he insisted it was his credit card at first.
It doesn't. Yeah, because he didn't buy it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
He
Like you say,
literally
he
just
is
he's
just
like
that
throwing
kid.
shit at the wall, isn't he? Going, maybe it's a
Yeah.
credit card, PayPal, debit, and
Yeah.
eventually that will land on the correct answer. He's like, yeah, it's that one. Like Craig, like
Yeah.
if you're Satoshi, you just register it on a domain registry yourself, and you would be able to verify that quite easily. Could you just log in to
But
the
it is
domain registrar that you brought it on, and there aren't that many of them, and you just have a
Yeah.
look. And Jesus, you would know where your Bitcoin.org is hosted. You would
but
know that
it
if
is
you're
a question
Satoshi.
of who is Bitcoin.org registered to?
Uh, it's, well, I think it's the Bitcoin Core developers. So
Okay.
Blockstream, Adam Back, and those guys.
Yeah, because I'll say it came up as a bit of curiosity on the back of reading this when we're talking about the
Hmm.
registration. But it's an absolute clown show, isn't it?
Yeah. I think his claim is they stole it from him then. And you just go, oh, right, of course they stole it. Oh, it's genuinely hilarious. Like the amount I don't know. Like, do you remember when Craig he did a talk at the Oxford Union? I think we might have even covered it. This is years ago. And someone I think accused him of being a fraud in the crowd. I asked him, "What are you a fraud or something?" And it proper triggered him. And he stood up and started ranting and started just going, I'm gonna prove this in a court of law. Welcome to law. And if I'm lying and I'm not Satoshi, the maximum sentence for perjury is 20 years. So I will serve 20 years in prison if I'm not Satoshi. So that amount of like confidence in the fact that this is true, which is why I'm not going to get taken to court for this. I will take them to court to prove that I'm Satoshi and make them pay out. And if I'm wrong, I go to prison for 20 years. It's like a big gamble. But
It's a classic. I swear on my life.
yeah, yeah,
If I'm lying, may God strike me down right now.
yeah. But it's not 20 years for perjury for something like this. It's just not. There's
Yeah.
no way. The only penalty that he will get, even when he gets proven, because it's bizarre. I always find it bizarre in these civil cases where it is money just on the line. Clearly, one side is lying, maybe both sides in some shape or form, and the truth is somewhere lies in the middle. But surely then, whoever wins means that the other side was lying a lot more, which is
Mm,
provable perjury. And perjury is a crime. You swear on the oath to tell the truth and only but the truth. And if you lie, it's supposed to be a criminal offense that carries at least a 6 month sentence. And as far as I know, in the majority of these civil kind of matters that were just about money and slander and all this type of stuff, which is basically just petty falling outs. That's what this is really. It's just a falling out on a very large scale about being a certain person, and a lot of money end up getting involved. But this is just, it's like neighbors just shouting each other across the fence, really. That's all this is. But surely it could get serious quite quickly that even if you're not suing each other over millions, like this case, you could be suing each other over just a couple of grand. But whoever wins, it means the other guy was lying. So that's perjury, and you should be
yeah.
sentenced as such. But that bit never happens. You just lose the money. So
Yeah, you probably get a fine or something like
well, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah. You
that.
lose the case, don't you? You have to pay the legal bills to the other side. You
But I
pay a
don't see how.
settlement fee, but there's no punishment as to going. Well, hold on. The fact that you lost means the majority of your freaking testimony was a lie, which is perjury, which is a crime.
I don't see this court case going on for very long after reading the first day. I've kind of like read a little bit of day two, but day one's so damning. I'm like, how far can we actually go? Craig, you're lying. It's obvious you're lying.
To
Your
me, small
evidence,
claims courts matters in a big court. Like you say, it's petty things.
but this is America. They're suing them in America, and literally the damages could be 100 million, 200 million, who knows?
This
Because
is
of,
the UK.
oh, this is UK.
This is London.
Oh wow! So it actually went bankrupt because it was in America. They
That's
put on
where we.
silly fines, don't they?
It will, unfortunately, it's because of our lack of freedom of speech, which is what made it possible to even start all this off. Because you're allowed to call people a fraud in America. You have the First Amendment to be able
Okay.
to say what you want. But in Britain, we don't really have a free speech law. So if you call someone a fraud in the UK, they can sue you for that, and you then have to prove it in a court of law that you were correct in saying that that person was a fraud. And that's how Craig started all this 5 or 6 years ago. It couldn't have been started anywhere else because our freedom of
Yeah.
speech is so limited in the UK.
Oh, yeah. I think we'll probably, hopefully, I'm guessing it's got to be over by next week. Reading through this again.
Yeah, I think he's desperate to settle, and apparently his lawyers, 'cause it said it in it, like his lawyers were trying to make him move a Satoshi live in the courtroom, and it's in like the whole testimony and these documents that they submitted, and that's what led Craig to being so stressed. Apparently, he tried to commit suicide, and there's apparently a
Uh,
doctor's report that says he did go to hospital and he was ill with something, uh, and that's just the whole story is bizarre, right? It almost just paints him to be a victim to go, don't ask me to move a coin because I might kill myself. Craig, like, don't hide behind suicide as a reason to not move a coin. And clearly, Satoshi's wallets are largely known. So
Yeah.
move just a couple of sats from one of those wallets, and it doesn't necessarily prove that you are Satoshi. It proves you have access to one of Satoshi's wallets, but that goes a hell of a long way to proving that if you're not Satoshi, you are freaking close to him if you have access to one of his wallets. So just move some sats. He refuses to do it. His lawyers
He
have
didn't.
pressured him. And when
He
he got
no
pressured enough, he freaking pretended to commit suicide. And that's what I
no.
think he did. He
It
pretended
was
to commit
too. It was
suicide.
too. It was too much stress. How dare you? It like makes me think about child, like we're saying, a child who keeps on lying and they're telling all their mates they can use, I don't know, like the force or something like that. And when they get called out in class to use the force, they faint.
Yeah, you
But
just
yeah.
poke them in the ribs and they start moving. You're like, no, you're not dead, are you?
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get more on that one. I don't know if there's anything more to say about Craig Wright apart from it'll be proven by next week that he is Satoshi.
Yeah. Well, it's one of them, isn't it, where like the evidence is just so damning. Even if I try and steel man Craig's case and go, what is the strongest case that he has to be Satoshi? I can't pull on a single
I
thing.
know.
Like literally every bit of evidence that he submitted, if you take it as read, you go, okay, this looks like he's Satoshi. But it's been so categorically disproved to be forgeries from the other side. All his evidence that is just thrown in the garbage because
Yeah.
they're forgeries. So once you get rid of the forgeries and go, what else is left? There's nearly nothing.
I think some more evidence will come up. There'll be a handwritten note from Hal Finney saying Craig Wright is Satoshi, written by Craig Wright's left hand. Oh, I think we should move on. Probably do a whole show on this
Yeah,
shit show.
to go back to politics, but the only
Yeah.
politics that we accept on the show where we actually have a look at an election and actually give a shit about the outcome.
What you mean? This is far right dictatorship politics.
Yeah.
It's a if you look at this for any country, you'd think maybe this could be a bit rigged at 87.61. You look at this and think this is the kind of shit which they do in Africa or South America. That is rigged to fuck. But then you
Well,
actually go through the
we've
recent
got to let the
history of El
people know.
Salvador.
That's it. So Nayib Bukele has won the re-election by 87.61%. And so therefore El Salvador has spoken. And yeah, so this is just to obviously put it in context for people.
So, if you looked at this as an isolated incident, you would be thinking it is, I suppose, fraudulent. But you look
It is suspiciously high. 87% is pretty much everything.
But when you think about the recent history, like if you're a resident, no matter, I vote for the blue party, I vote for the dark blues, the greens, the reds, the yellows, whatever party they are, you kind of be going, but Bukele, he's actually increased our GDP. He's increased tourism. Gang murders are down. The gangs are getting rounded up and put in prison. You kind of go, I don't like all these policies, but my wife can actually walk back from her job at 8 o'clock at night and not be fearful of the streets anymore. So you got to look at this and think it's gone from the biggest shithole in the world to a lot higher up the list now, hasn't it? And it's only been a few years since he got in, and since he's been able to get his radical changes in about this whole kind of I suppose the low time preference mindset of actually fixing the country.
Yeah. The only thing, right? Look, I just quickly Googled it on the high percentage rate. So when Barack Obama got voted in, first
Yeah.
black president, he's running against John McCain, who admittedly is a war veteran and all that. the other side, Republican against Democrat. Barack was obviously the Democrat. With Joe Biden as his VP. It's Sarah Palin. God, I remember Sarah Palin was like the original like joke. But so this is when Obama just shot onto the scene, right? You know, first black president, spoke amazingly well, super charismatic, was going to change everything, led with a campaign of hope.
Hope.
Whereas John McCain,
hope.
an old white guy, part of the establishment, yeah, basically what is Joe Biden is today, right? Which is you know nothing's changing, right? Barack was genuinely a younger guy, and everyone believed he was going to change it, right? In that vote, Barack only got 52.9% of the vote. John McCain got 45.7%. So obviously the other candidates got the other like little bit.
I was going to say there's not really any candidates, are there?
It's insanely close, right? Insanely close. And that the only reason I googled that election was surely Barack Obama in 2008 won by a landslide that year, right? Just clearly he just right guy, right time. But no, he won by 7%, you know, 52.9 against 45. But yeah, maybe it is just a case of that America is very wedded to its political sides. It doesn't matter who comes up on the other side, even if Barack is someone that you go, wow, he seems like a really good guy, but screw him, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote for Republican no matter what. Whereas in El Salvador, maybe they don't have those political affinities, and
What's this? Things have
you
actually
genuinely vote for the right person, not just
things have
what
started
party they
to
like.
change. Whereas to change the kind of like the meter in America is so much more because it is the number one country. What would you have to do to actually make the America progress? And also, you're kind of not really president of much because the individual states are quite autonomous in a way, aren't they? Whereas El Salvador, tiny little country, what is it, 6 million people or something? It's not big at all.
Yeah, right.
And you know, like I said, it's gone from the biggest shithole in the world to I think it's had a significant jump up the tables in murder rates and crime, etc. So I think if you did live there, surely even if you don't like him, you got to look at him and think it's the right thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
We're
but
actually
obviously
moving up.
the US president also is, you know, effectively the most influential person given the size of the economy as well, in the world, or one of.
Yeah, I was just reading through the comments, and I think I agree with one of them down there, which is it would just be good to see an opposition. You know, whenever someone just has a complete majority like this, there should be two Bukelades
Mm.
kind of challenging here to go, yeah, we're going to continue on the Bitcoin standard, but then on top of that, we're going to do this, this, and this. Whereas you look down this list of, you know, the people that lost, right? They're the classic old guy, you know, a load of old boomers. Then you got Bukele there looking like he's fucking straight out of Vogue magazine, you know, he's, you know, 35, 40. And you go, what to keep someone honest, especially when you're that high up and that powerful, you need someone that is genuinely competing against you. And so they're largely quite similar almost to you, but they just divert on a couple of nuanced issues. What it looks like is that everyone running against him is so politically different that no one even puts a vote there. They just all vote for Bukele. Assuming, of
Yeah.
course, that this election is even legit. Who knows? Obviously, he is ruling with a bit of an iron fist at the moment. Who knows what it's like in country if you get caught voting for someone else? Does something happen?
Yeah, you do never know, but I think, like I said, I think the big thing about the stance on gangs will have had a big sway. Because my understanding, it was just absolutely rife
Yeah.
before.
Mm.
Yeah, I think categorically, I think when you look at the key stats, and if there is person that deserves that type of landslide, which I must admit, I'm still skeptical of something that high. I think a landslide should be 60%. That should probably be your maximum amount of votes that you got. This should be 40% shared amongst the others, but because 87% is nearly everyone. But yeah, if you look at the key stats about what people care about, which is crime, the economy, health, jobs, I'm sure
tourism.
people are feeling it on the ground that they feel safer. They feel better off because they've come off the US dollar standard, so they're not as prone to inflation now. They're moving to Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin hasn't been hugely taken up. Crime has reduced hugely. So he's making a meaningful impact on that country. So yeah, if people are genuinely that much behind him, then congrats. It's just that it looks suspiciously high to me, which
Yeah.
if it
And
is
I've
suspiciously
also
high, then
had reoccurring thoughts about our conversation from last week about people just being corrupt, yeah, and the corruptness just because it's just human nature. Like it's not great thinking about it, but you see these crimes where people have been, murdered on the streets, or even the fact of like beheading. But beheading used to be the usual back in the day. Look back in like wars and burning people on the stakes where people would go to watch. We've just become a society that's just been tamed along it. But
I'm all up for
ultimately,
bringing back beheadings.
but where I'm going with it is that, you know, people earning or people becoming corrupt or people doing things that they shouldn't necessarily do is just part and parcel of humans being humans. And so ideally, we would love for Bukele not to do that and not to turn. And equally, like, not that Zuck was ever on the right side of the law, but, now that I'm sure he is full government, plant. And it's not really a plant because we kind of know, a plant is kind of unknown. But yeah, I just think maybe he has succumbed to the powers that be somewhere, and that's why this landslide is a landslide.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's
I think
impossible
he's
to
fighting against
tell.
the main system, but the problem is he getting drunk on his own power? That,
Yeah,
that's the issue, right? So a different level of corruption creeps in.
correct.
Not that he's being controlled by the US. Like, who knows? Maybe he is the ultimate Trojan horse, and he's pretending to be a
Mm,
fuck you type president to the US, bringing on a Bitcoin standard, calling out and laughing and shit posting really on Twitter about the US dollar, and but secretly he's working for them. But I think potentially what's more likely, and this is why Bitcoin is decentralized, it's why Satoshi decentralized the entire platform, is that if you do give an individual power over people and large amounts of wealth, every single time, and we've seen this over the whole course of history, at some point they will start to pull a couple of levers that keep themselves in power for longer than they should be, and that
yeah.
or they carve off a little bit more money than they should do. And once they start that, it only gets bigger because then people start to rebel. They have to then become authoritarian to stop it. They need to steal more money to protect themselves, and it just gets into this huge amount of corruption in the end and the entire system then. So someone good that got into power fundamentally, when you fast forward 30 years, is a tyrant by the end of
Yeah, I
it.
think Gaddafi started off as being good, but then just started killing his own people who rose up against him.
Yeah.
Though he did have some good within him, like trying to get onto some kind of like precious metal standard, which ultimately ended up with him getting killed. But he was a tyrant as well.
Yeah. And that's the issue. And that's why I say Bukele needs opposition. He needs to be kept honest. He can't win 87% of the vote. he needs to have someone that is genuinely competing on similar policies that are just as attractive to El Salvadoran people than he is. So at any point he could be replaced. And if he does get replaced, he should accept it. That's another big thing.
Mm.
Yeah,
But,
well,
but yeah, it's
like I said, it's really hard for us to tell. I think
it's his
maybe he's
first
had this up.
re-election.
Yeah, maybe he's had this one, honestly. But I think no matter what he does during this cycle, people will be thinking, oh, things could be better. So I think when the next one comes up, you'll be able to spot what's going on.
Yeah, it's actually a good point actually, because there's a lot of new governments that get in and they promise the world, and then they do a couple of things in their first 4 years, and you go, "Oh, that's good steps to progress." But they go, "Yeah, but a lot of the first 4 years has been correcting the mistakes of the past. It's the next four where you see the benefit. It's always the next four, and
Yeah.
the next four
So
happen, and everything just regresses back to how it started." You go, well, not only did
exactly.
you not improve it, it's regressed back again. And then you get voted out normally, and they take a shit ton of money with them as they leave. So I guess now it's going to be okay. You've cleared up some of almost the low hanging fruit. You've cut down some of the gangs. Basically, that seems to be his biggest thing that he's done. Now it's how do you progress into this future prosperous world where you make El Salvador, a tourist location and a booming business hub of the world. How is he going to do that bit? It's good. And admittedly, 4 year cycles for stuff like this is ridiculously short. You can't change a country like El Salvador, which is pretty much bottom of the GDP in the countries and of the globe, and suddenly go, oh, now you're 10th in the world or something. Like it's impossible
Yeah.
to do that inside a 4 to 8 year cycle.
I
But
think he's got up like 10 places in all the metrics, so he has dramatically improved. Well, actually, I think apart from murder, which has gone up very dramatically, but that has been imprison as many gang members as you can.
yeah,
But we'll see.
Well,
Like,
I've just seen something actually. So, as we've been talking about this, so in 2021, legislative elections, the newly elected Congress purged the Constitutional Court, replacing judges with loyalists. The new justices later ruled that Bukele could run for a second term despite the constitutional ban on re-election. So my question was initially, you know, what's the term time in office in El Salvador? And it used to be a 5 year term.
and
It seems that
that was it. You
maybe,
could do it
and
once.
that, yeah, and that was it.
Oh, so he's
But
been
then the
allowed a
new just
special.
correct, yeah, yeah, the new justices later ruled that Bukele could run for a second term despite the constitutional ban on re-election. So it has already been some form of corruption, albeit the fact that people have re-elected him,
but
what we believe, democratically.
yeah, I was gonna say, but a 4 years, 5 year term, a single one, you're not gonna get shit all done.
Mm.
So I kind of go, it makes sense to remove that because it just stifles any forward motion within the country.
Of course. And in The Economist in 2022, Nayib Bukele did come out to state that he wants to abolish term limits in El Salvador.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'm
what
I'm fine with
it's
that.
what we'll have to watch.
Yeah.
I also agree. Like having like a limit, like most countries seem to have this 2 term limit, don't they? Seemingly El
Mm,
Salvador had a 1 term limit, but I don't agree. It's like have as many terms as you want, provided you get voted in legitimately, and that you have
mm,
fair competition, and that people from within the same party as you genuinely get to compete against you. Then it's all fine. The problem that we have is that I don't think we have democracy, and it's the same old people that keep getting put it up. And so yeah, fine, switch them out every 4 years, but all we get is a different old person. So it's a fake form of limitation of term. But yeah, I don't know if it's the Western propaganda getting in my head, but straight away I started thinking of Putin when you were
yeah,
talking then.
yeah.
Putin did the same thing, didn't he? There was there was a limit on the number of terms that you could have in Russia, and he just abolished it and went, nah, unlimited. And then he wins with 99% of the electoral vote, I think, every year,
Correct.
if not 100%, because normally any opposition just drop out through pure terror. So it's yeah, I don't think there's almost been a vote for the last decade in Russia. Like no one will even run against him. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, last story of the week here to close up the show. A story close to all of our hearts, KYC and AML. So there's a new website entitled Only Fake, not to be confused with OnlyFans, a very different website. But it creates images of fake IDs using AI for only $15. Images from OnlyFake have been used to bypass KYC requirements on crypto exchanges OKX, raising cybersecurity concerns. It's always going to be the thing, right? Obviously, anyone who doesn't know what a KYC and AML check, what it really is you put in your name and address, date of birth, all that kind of balls. But then you also submit some documents, passport, driving license, and then you likely probably do a selfie at the same time. But obviously, with the rise of AI, and seemingly that someone has specialized a form of AI into something called OnlyFake, is that you can shove your face and someone else's driving license into OnlyFake, and it puts you nice and realistically into the image, and it looks like you just took a photo of a driving license open on a desk. You take a selfie next to that, and guess what? They're going to match, aren't they?
Yeah.
So surprise, surprise, KYC and AML didn't work anyway. All the fraud has been rising every year for the last, I think, 50 years, and it only has gone parabolic since the internet has come to fruition. But now the typical ways of verifying an individual's identity has just become laughably easy to fake from the looks of things here, which with a matter of time, right? Especially with this AI stuff, it's a matter of time till someone fine tunes it to get through KYC and AML. And it looks like someone's gone and done it here.
Well, given AI's explosion, and obviously it was always coming, but it is now very much here, and the rise in bots, I think it was inevitable. And equally, I think people wanting to have a reusable ID or a token of some sort, if you get a verified token, and that verified token is from a AI generated token, therefore you're in the system, aren't you then? Because you've bypassed it somewhere, it's giving you the OK check, and then you can continue to use it. So I think it's definitely something that is going to be seen more and more.
Yeah, I think it's just coming up with measures to actually deal with it. So, just using a document on its own or basically with a selfie, it is risky and it always has been. But with AI for creating the document and then deep fakes for actually doing selfies on, it really does expose it.
Yeah.
Because how would you stop it without with those things? I know there's
you'd have to use data, so ultimately it's got to be able to match across, but then it's like it depends what type of fraud you're looking for.
That's the
So
thing.
like
The only way I
you
can
want
think
to
it's almost like going into bank accounts, verifying transactions within a person's bank account and stuff, and no one does
yeah.
that, do they? No one does it.
Well, it depends what you're going to do. What you can get automated, then it's obviously consent, friction on the journey. So it's first of all making sure is the person actually real, and then doesn't they match the document? Really simple. But if you're then going to tie that document to someone's presence, you've got the risk. So how do you deal with that? So are the companies which deal with telling that it's a deep fake, or has it got so convincing they can't?
Well,
And
exactly.
then
Oh, they
Yeah,
won't be
looking
because
looking at
like, the photo of an
location.
ID is so like nondescript. It's just a freaking document on a table, right? It's the easiest
Yeah,
Yeah.
image to fake ever.
So you just got to tie it, maybe tying the person to the mobile as well, looking at the location. So it's just doing as much as you can. But the fact is, as always, even before AI and deepfakes, you would never be able to stop 100%. It's just stopping, say, the majority.
Yeah. And going back to the regulations, none of that is part of the regulatory compliance to do those extra steps. Regulatory
Yeah.
compliance is just to check the ID and that it matches
No,
to the name address.
there's anti-impersonation piece within the anti-money laundering, but it's very basic, and for many
Reasonable
years
endeavors, isn't it? Reasonable endeavors.
reasonable endeavors.
it's
Yeah,
reasonable endeavors, and the main recommendation which they had for donkey's years was a certified copy of a document. So literally you could write certified by Jones solicitors. And how the hell is a company going to tell?
yeah.
But you say, but this is Jones solicitors. They're not going to ring up and say, did you certify this? I go, it's Jones solicitors. They're based in, I don't know, London. Great, I'll sign it off.
Yeah,
But it's,
who's certifying the certifier or
yeah, exactly.
identifying
No one
the
phones them up.
certifier?
Are you Jones solicitors? Have you certified a passport? Yeah, I have. Well, for this, Mister Smith, I don't know. Maybe.
But how do you even know you're
I
speaking
never,
to Joan?
Yeah, exactly.
I've never
There's
gone
fifth.
through that type of process or where someone's gone, okay, this is your documents. Now send it to your solicitor. You go, what? I haven't got a solicitor. What are you on about?
Yes, it's just certified for someone. So you have it now for like. Oh, I had to send off for something. I can't remember what it was. Building society
Solicitor will charge you
account.
£5 for it.
Is building society account for the kids to put some savings into. They wanted someone who was either a magistrate, a police officer, your solicitor, or so on. So I just asked the neighbour who's a police officer. But once again, I could just go write some random name like John Smith and go, John Smith's a police officer. Are you going to check it? No, you're not.
But this was a few years ago because you just
No,
said you were sending
this
fiat for the
this
kids.
was a year or two ago, so it's
Oh,
still part of the
gosh.
process.
This is the beauty of Bitcoin, right? Right, buy them a hardware wallet, put your sats on there. No one asked you to ask that your police officer status
Exactly.
bootlicking, wanking police officer name, right? To
But yeah,
pretend to have verified your ID.
like the regulations are way behind what's going on in the market is what it comes down to, and I
Do you know
know
why?
barely any why.
Because they don't fucking care. They're not
Correct.
here to stop fraud, are they? All
Correct.
this is fraud. They're here to verify the NPCs and to make sure they know where all the money is. They don't care about fraud. Don't give a shit. They deal with that later. Because where's the majority of the fraud happen? On the NPCs, on the population, right? If they cared about this really, they would properly introduce regulation that stop this type of thing, and they'd create identity documents. They'd have identity apps, right? You know, when I send a payment from my banking app, guess what? You need to have access to my phone to send the thing. Do just issue a government ID that isn't a driver license or a passport on a bit of fucking stupid paper, put it on my phone, make me go through really rigorous authentication, like my banking app does, to make sure once I've gone through that, sending payments is a piece of piss. All you do is have a government version of that as an ID, you put it on your phone, and then suddenly, every time I need to log into a thing, verify my identity, my age, whatever it might be, it pings my phone. That app is heavily verified. I say that is me. Or I type, or it gives me a 6-digit code on the screen. I take the 6-digit code on that screen, and it goes, yep, you're the person. The solution is a piece of piss. It has to be led by government. They have not led it. They have not funded this. Instead, they have left it. They've given some paper documents that have been out for about 50 years and gone, do your best with that.
Certify them.
And they know.
Yeah.
It's good at verifying the honest people. So the honest people that want to pay their taxes, which is the majority of people, will use these unique identifiers. They will use their driving license number, they'll use their passport number, and they'll type them into all these websites. all these websites then send all the information to the tax office, and they can look at the majority of the people of where they're moving their money around. Of course, they know the fraudsters are going to game the system, but they don't really care about them because most of the fraud they commit, like I said, is against the population, not against the state. They're never going to pay taxes anyway. They're going to leave the country, da 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 da. So this has all gone, oh, it's a cybersecurity concern. They're bypassing KYC requirements. Oh no, fraud is happening. These documents aren't designed to stop fraud. The regulations aren't designed to stop fraud. They're designed to surveil the money and surveil the citizens. And it's working perfectly for that, which is why nothing changes.
On that note,
On that note, I will take us out and I will remind everyone. Sorry, that was Pod 130, brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and Mrs. No Show, aka No Show. Peace.